how to think about making money, and then more physical layer. I think everybody in the room who is wireless contractor takes their plans and build an EV site. It's a power site without a tower. So we're not talking about rocket science in that sense. But there's so much more that goes into it that you don't think about in a typical cell site. So what I wanted to do is, first of all, let's have everybody introduce themselves. We'll go down the line and then we'll start with the question. Jared, please.
I'm Jared Edmond, I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Accelerate America, and my job is what we call book to bill. So I'm the sales team, books an order for a charge site, then I can go through the whole process all the way to operational.
John.
I am John O'Sullivan, President and Founder of DXT Construction Solutions. We are a nationwide full turnkey provider of site design, engineering, construction, permitting, utility engagement for EV infrastructure, battery storage, and small-scale microgrids.
Al?
Yes, I'm Al Rakos with DynaCharge. I'm Executive Vice President. DynaCharge is a full system integrator for charging hardware and software itself. So we deliver a turnkey solution. We're a technology enabler for future CEOs and existing CEOs, and certainly work with a lot of different constituents of general contracting and electrical providers and real estate.
Hi, my name is Ripul Lamba. I represent Nexus One. Our job is essentially to digitize what they do and make sure the workflow management runs smoothly and efficiently, and transfer the learnings we have from the wireless telecom world into this space also, which is a very exciting space. So we do that globally.
Good. Thank you. So, Jared, your part of this process is very near and dear to the hearts of me and many of the people in the room. The site app and all the front end piece of this. So, I may be sort of a little bit of Pollyanna when it comes to this, but I see electric vehicle charging in three pieces: front end, back end, and the overarching software piece. So your expertise and your part of this is the front end. So talk to us about what it takes to do that.
Sure. So our business model is we provide the charging equipment at no charge to our customers. So site selection is a huge portion of what we have to look at. We use a piece of software that goes up, looks at the site, looks at all the EV charging stations, looks at the power, looks at all the incentives available. But we also look at what kind of chargers that the site should have. You know, if the customer's going to have a long dwell time at the site because it's at an apartment complex or someplace where they're going to park their vehicle for hours, then we'll put in the level 2 chargers. If it's a shorter dwell time where they're just coming in just to get a fast charge because they're on their way someplace, then we'll put in the larger level 3 chargers. But the chargers, the difference in the cost of charging between level 2s and level 3s is massive. We could easily spend $500,000 on a level 3 site, where we can do level 2 sites, if we can get it usually over 100,000. So we're very cognizant of the cost and how much traffic we're going to get at the site. The other thing that we look at is how much power we have available. We give power companies heart attacks when we show up and say, hey, we need 4,000 amps of power at a particular site because we put in a bank of level 3 chargers. So if they don't have the power, then basically the charge site, no matter how good it is, isn't worth anything to us. Or if it's going to take some, look at it, one site right now is going to take 6 months to get the power in. So we're looking for patient lending, you guys said earlier. The other thing we're looking at is how much traffic. On a level 2 site, the traffic really doesn't matter as much to us because, again, we're looking at places where people are going to park their cars for a long duration. Traffic weighs a lot on a level 3 site because we're looking for places that are really close to the interstate, have a lot of traffic associated with them because they're coming in, and they want some places to get easy in, easy out. The other thing we're looking at, especially on level 2 sites, is amenities. What are there things to do for the customer while they're waiting for their car to charge? There's shops, coffee shops, that sort of thing. And that's also on level 3 chargers. We're looking at, you're looking at 30, 45 minutes, fast food, coffee shops, stores that are close by. We usually drive probably 1 to 2% incremental revenue on a store with a charging station in, because it brings in additional business So all of those things, come into play when we're looking at site selection.
So I forgot to mention that we're not going to have time to take questions necessarily from the audience. We may, but if we don't, everybody who's been on all these panels will be here at the end, and you can come up and speak to any of us individually or together. And so I think that's an opportunity for anybody who has questions. We may have time later to take some of them in the field, but we'll see. So I think it's interesting, John, you and Jerry are already working together from an earlier event that you went to and heard Jerry's boss speak at that event, and that turned into a relationship. So I'm really very hopeful that some of the people in this room have an opportunity to get work from the folks on this panel and the other panels. But so from the standpoint of the front end, from the Jerry standpoint, but you do a bunch of that kind of work also. So how do you mesh together with an Accelerate and what PXT is doing?
So we will often take the data that Jerry's put together on the opportunity and now bring it into the construction phase. So we'll take his site, his use case, whether that's DC fast or level 2, lead, public, whatever it might be, and we'll look at all components of what is needed to bring it all the way from site design through construction and operations and maintenance. And that's where a lot of the similar paths come into play with the telecom industry. Everybody has to look at permitting, zoning, utility engagement, and all the challenges that come along with that. Very difficult. It all has to run almost in a parallel path because Jerry can't go and sign his client until he's really 80% sure that the project is A, buildable. Utility power, everybody's having that problem, but more from zoning and operational standpoint.
Right. Yeah, let's not forget what we talked about the other night, NEPA, SHPO, flood zones, floodplains, all of those things too. That fits into your world, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a huge challenge. Telecoms dealing with that use.
Right. And how do you fit together with the aspect of it that, do I have Wi-Fi, do I have cellular, do I have, fiber backhaul? How does that fit together with you? Is that someone else's responsibility or do you involve in that?
No, we usually take that over the design. It really depends upon the client and end user. Probably more often than not, it is a cellular connection. And, there was a period of time when that was often overlooked, early stage sidewalk. There may not have been coverage, and if you don't realize that early enough, you're up against the wall when you're into construction.
So somebody asked me this morning, so I have my XYZ carrier phone. We won't say T-Mobile, but I have my carrier phone, and I go to the site, and gee, I don't have any service. But not only that, but I have to download the app that I don't have on my phone because that charger needs this app, and I don't have a connection to download the app, and if I can't download the app, I can't connect to the charger. So basically, I'm screwed. So kind of an important aspect of all this, huh?
It is, and 9 times out of 10, it's usually addressed ahead of time. It really doesn't get to the point where a charger is installed and somebody driving up can't access it. I mean, they may not be able to access it for different reasons, like they don't have the app or something's not functioning. There's a lot of different dynamics when it comes to interoperability.
Is Wi-Fi a big piece?
Fairly.
Right, so in other words, sometimes if I don't have a cellular connection, Wi-Fi may do.
Wi-Fi is big if we're in like parking garages, stacks where you're not going to get a cell signal, so you have to run that repeater back to, or on, that's Cat 5, Cat 6, 5, that's also built into the design as well.
Right, and so if you've got a site with convenience store, charging, lounge, lighting, signage, etc., you need that for your potential lounge so people can go in and use their phone. So if they're stopping to charge, they get a soda and a bag of chips, they charge the car, they also have the lounge that they can go and use their phone and check their emails and be merrily on their way. Gotcha. So Alan, you're more into the software piece of this. Your company provides a lot of software for utilities, which is an incredible handshake with having charging software that works, utility connection that works. And so it all sort of fits together nicely that there's some symmetry to all of that. Talk to us about how that, in your view, makes this a better process.
Okay. Overall, I would first say I like the way it's positioned of what Jerry and John do. Very complementary to where DynaCharge comes in. When you talk about software within the EV space itself, and it was brought up earlier before, you have could be household AC level 2 chargers, which can also be in apartments, and those periods of times where vehicles charge for a longer period of time. Then you get into that DC fast charger. Now you're talking explosive power, you're talking quicker charging, some as little as 10 to 15 minutes. Again, that all depends on the vehicle, that depends on the battery size. And what's interesting about what's complementary is as John from PXT develops a site and looks at the overlay, the planning, the design, and everything that's there, DynaCharge, we develop a turnkey solution. Turnkey, I mean the hardware itself, design hardware, whether it be a level 2, level 3 charger that incorporates our software. The importance about the software is that it is interoperable with the utilities. So DynaCharge, a little bit of history, comes from the utility and energy sector. We develop very high-end software for utilities. We manage and automate the grid. Years ago, 15 years ago or so, developing of that, onward to today, where we're past renewable energy into the electrification or EV side. The software is important of where I come from, Intel Corporation, Microsoft working together, software playing the hardware, hardware playing the software. So from our perspective, the EV software management itself is modular basis. So we're beyond just a platform of let's see if that charger is charging. It's not a mobile app. It's a comprehensive application that is modular to design to manage the energy, to manage payment processing, to manage all the financials associated, scheduling for fleet and fleet management, as well as prioritization in that. When you talk about across the board and you look at the types of verticals out there, everybody here that I've talked to can absolutely get into transition in business, a new revenue model of saying you understand fiber, you understand lane, you understand the towers, the electrical portion of it. Deploying electric vehicle charging absolutely can be in your forte of a new business model. From DynaCharge's perspective, it's that complete turnkey solution. The software is important for everything, the charge point operator down to the end user that has that mobile device. And yes, I think someone mentioned earlier, yes, there's instances where they come up to a charger and they can't pay for it. The app doesn't work. That's a mobile app. Again, we are definitely on the modular basis, even allowing somebody to use a credit card the old way, right? So it absolutely addresses all the needs of the end user. Combined, it goes back to that turnkey solution. So it's easy to install. It's easy to work with that construction or electrical building.
Rick, well, before we get to you, I just want to go back and ask each one of these three gentlemen sort of their opinion, and I hope that they're differing opinions. They don't need to be yes, yes, yes. Jerry, what's the biggest challenge when that charger doesn't work for some reason? Is it hardware? Is it software? Is it other? Is it vandalism? What's the biggest challenge from your seat with that charger not working?
The biggest challenge is usually around the charger hardware itself. It's not simple hardware. Relays get stuck, things need to get reset. Vandalism is probably second. We're taking over a network from another CEO that's getting out of business. We did 19 site surveys last week. Of the 19, 6 of them had cut cables. There was no question, like, why hasn't this charger been used since August of last year? It'll do every 6 months. So that's usually the biggest thing. We don't see that much problem on the software side. We have a very reliable software partner on the back end. So their stuff usually works really well.
John, your take on it?
I would somewhat agree with that. Most likely nowadays, the software component is worked out during the commissioning process. There may be challenges getting the hardware to talk to the vehicle, but the software glitch, once the station's up and running and functioning, is usually not the issue. Vandalism is a huge component, and what we're seeing now is more hardware issues that they're not maintained properly. AC fast chargers require quite a bit of maintenance on a yearly and quarterly basis. So as you can see that.
Alan, your take?
Yeah, I would say it's going to lean towards the hardware. Vandalism has already been brought up. Most prominent is the stealing of the cables. That's what people think, and they sell the copper, whatever it's in them. So software, as John said, it's the commissioning, brings up the software and everything. Software, advanced software itself, like our EVES platform, we actually do diagnostics. We get error codes. We can literally remotely reboot that charger if it's necessary. Most of the chargers are turning, when we talk about advanced technology, into modular design. So literally it's hot swap capability for maintenance and support. But yeah, a lot of it is the vandalism.
That's a perfect follow-up question. Oh, I'm going to get to Rickle. Rickle, you guys are in the project management business. Is that correct?
That's right.
Right. So tell us about how important that is in the process here and what your view of that is.
Right, so I mean, one thing which we all have learned from the telecom space, which I guess most of us are from, is that you should do it right and do it right now, right? We have for so many years and decades actually in telecom world, kind of masqueraded the opportunity of kind of digitizing the entire network. So while the front end was running wireless technologies, the back end was still old spreadsheets and Excels, right? Which has painstakingly taken so many years and decades for companies to kind of transition to. EV space offers us an opportunity now to digitalize this as we start. I mean, keep in mind, this is a very nascent market as we talk about it. We're talking about 4 million EVs right now, the projection growth up to 27 million by 2030. We're talking about the charge points growing from something similar number to 35 million by 2030. A CAGR of 15% is the market growth which is happening in the EV space. So we are pretty much in the first quarter of this game in the EV. So there's a huge opportunity to do the design, deploy, operate, maintain, and monitor directly from the very word go. And that's where we work very closely with the front-end software companies on the back-end side, so as to make sure these processes are kind of implemented right from the word go, and they can actually provide the benefit and the efficiency and the return on investments already from the beginning. And that's so super key, right? I mean, think about an use case where you have all this kind of integration with the existing ecosystem of softwares, where you can have a robust integration of APIs into the backend software ecosystem. So there you are already integrated into a world which is already moving fast and forward. And so EV space, to my mind, is a great opportunity to exercise our learnings and expertise from the wireless domain and make it happen there.
So my follow-up to the question I asked about the equipment and what goes wrong, one of the things I found across the industry, and you mentioned it yourself, is how's a charger out for 6 months and nobody knows? Do parts really exist for any of these pieces of equipment? Is there really any inventory for a cord or a board or the equipment itself anywhere in this country?
Yeah, we're starting to work with a couple of back-end providers in the maintenance that are doing parts, depots for us. They're storing parts strategically in locations depending on what kind of chargers we have and where. We've got a huge install base in the southeast and northeast, and so we're caching parts in those areas where the chargers that we use, they're most common. We do, since we also buy other CPOs, sometimes we end up with some really odd hardware, and in those cases, we're just it has to be down until we ship parts.
So, that is the customer's dilemma, John. If they pull up to a site and it's not working, they got a sub-800 number that's in, Afghanistan, and they're trying to talk to customer service, and, the site's down, and just said 6 months. From the standpoint of maintenance, repairs, and fixing all that, what's your standpoint? What's your position on that?
Well, I mean, we see it often, and I think with a lot of CPOs, they've learned a lot of lessons the last 10 years. Station location, how to operate them, and really how to communicate. I mean, you talked about Tesla before, they're clearly the leader. When before you're even at a station rolling up to the Tesla site, they're going to tell you how many chargers are there, how many sites are available, if there's any down, how many people are en route to that same charging station. Other CPOs are now kind of building towards that point of getting there, where maybe they didn't have the proper overhead maintenance to monitor these stations, where they didn't either they realized they were down or they really didn't. And I think when it comes to vandalism, that's a hard thing to keep up on. So some sectors of the country where it's a challenge. The day the cords are replaced, the next day they're coming.
So Alan, from the standpoint of that 800 number on the side of the unit goes to a customer service, is that customer service area yours? Or does it tie with your software knock guys? And how does that figure into this whole equation?
So the answer to that is yes. It's our overlay as far as technical support, especially when you talk maintenance. We also work through and with our partners itself for that service entity part of it. Are there spare parts in the United States? Yes. When you talk about advanced technology on the chargers, as I said earlier, they're modular. A lot of them are getting more progressive in that respect. The one thing that DynaCharge does is we do testing on the hardware itself. We have our own chargers, again, as I said, full stack development, but we have a large 12,000 square foot testing facility in Los Angeles. We work with all those manufacturers, so we understand what they offer, what is required for maintenance and support on that. Outside of spare vehicles, because again, that's the maintenance component there, they try to keep those aside.
Now you work through Sargent, who's a distributor of yours. Is that the right word for a distributor?
Sargent and John Reed is somewhere in the audience here. Sargent is our authorized DynaCharge distributor. That's correct. So John also holds a NAC itself and a support
And they are one of our sponsors. Sargent is one of our sponsors. Thank you to both companies for doing that. So Ripple, how does any of this make a difference in terms of what you're doing with the management of all this? Is there a difference in the way you're doing it with cell phone work and then working with Dish around the country? Is there a difference of the way you do that with EV charging?
No, absolutely not actually, and that's where the similarity is. I mean, our platform is very horizontal, so in a way the industry, like we work with many telecom companies, startup companies, EV charging companies, and basically as around asset tracking, asset management, and project management. So from the word let go, I mean, we are doing 360-degree network monitoring. EV networks are not much different. I mean, you can imagine EV networks being a group of cell sites spread over the country, similar to a network would be, right? And the challenge lies in monitoring, managing, deploying, and we help in all those spheres. So it's a very actually transferable capability which we have been able to transform on the software side with our lead customers globally on the EV side. Also, we were recently working with a customer in New Zealand, and the uptime and their uptake was so fast, and this is all coming from our years of experience in the telecom tower space, where we could actually translate that into the EV space very quickly and kind of take it to the next level. Now, the good news is that the technology disruption is so fast and so in a fast pace that we're able to, in fact, utilize new technologies into EV domain also. Talk about IoT integration into a CPO side. I mean, you can have smart charging solutions. Once you have IoT integrated into your CPOs, you can have analytics to be on your CPU size. You can have energy usage monitoring. You can have, what is the right amount of charging. You can have maintenance. So you can actually take it to the next level of analytics now with the kind of technology which is at hand with us now. So in a way, this is kind of a growth of existing knowledge and competence we have built over the years in telecom and tower space, now being translated into the EV space. So it's kind of a very exciting new domain, which is very easily kind of transferable now and built upon.
So, Jerry, getting back to people in this room, how would you advise them if they want to work with companies like yours? What do they need to know, and what do they need to do to be effective to help your firm like yours?
So the big thing for us is connectivity. These are smart chargers. They have to be connected to the network, number one, so we can see what's going on with the charger, never just the customer use it. And that's a big hindrance for us if we can't get the right kind of connectivity because there's no limited coverage, or this carrier doesn't cover that area, this carrier's down. So that's a big deal for us, and providing this multi-vendor SIMs or the right SIM, the right IoT plan,
Well, you come to the right place.
I think we might have one or two people here who knows something about this.
I think anybody here understand any of that stuff?
But yeah, the connectivity, it's a big problem for us because, like I said, if there's no connectivity, nobody can use the chargers, and we don't know what's going on with the charger.
Good. John, from your standpoint?
I guess from our standpoint, we partner with installation vendors across the country to do our work. A lot of it is obviously very high power, safety is paramount, so we're looking for those seasoned, well-established companies that have a safety program in place that can meet criteria and demands of the project. These projects are getting larger and larger in scale and could run anywhere from a couple weeks to a few months for some more fleet projects. So we have been, the past probably 2 years partnering with a lot of the telecom companies in different regions of the country now.
Yeah, you've got a telecom background, so that makes it a little more lubricated, if you will, for you. Alan, is it working with you, working with Sargent? What's the proper method or entry point for you?
So we work with a number of you that are out there when you talk about electrical, general contractors, real estate. We have, as I said, developed that full, complete solution. It's complex because it manages energy, payment, scheduling across the board, but it's easy to install for the end user, your customers. Think of the customers you have, think of what you deploy relative to the telecom space, and you adopt that and build new business, ancillary, incremental revenue itself. So we work very closely with all of you as new partners. We work with the fact of a complete solution being able to deliver to your customer, especially when you have a new customer, you say, you know what, let's add EV charging to that. A lot of construction is requiring that today. So when I kind of summarize it, I look at, when you talk about the infrastructure, the software and the hardware, Dynacharge is to EV charging as Apple is to the smartphone.
So just to kind of think the whole situation through, the knowledge that folks would need potentially to help in different areas might be the hardware piece, but not only that, but the installation piece, the software piece, and all the things that go into this. So being a nimble contractor with multiple skill sets seems like the most effective way to get business in the EV charging space. Am I saying that effectively, or am I, out of my mind here?
Well, for us, we depend on people like John and his company to lubricate the process for us because we're in the business of owner operator and placement and making all those kind of decisions. We don't know. We're not good at permitting. We're not good at finding the right contractors. So that's why we depend on people like John and people that he employs to get that process done for us.
Right. So the folks that you deal with, John, would have to be sort of knowledgeable on multiple aspects of this. Is that a correct way to say it?
Oh, yeah, without doubt. I mean, we built a really seasoned, established team at PXC. I myself have been in the EV space since 2008. Some of our directors have been since the mid-90s. So we have the experience, we have the knowledge. There's a lot that goes into a site. It's more than just dropping a charger in a parking stall and hope it can charge the vehicle.
But so if people wanted to work with you, you mentioned that you don't physically do the construction, but, working with folks that have a broad background would be the best aspect here.
Well, a broad background, there's a lot of similarities that we talked about in telecom. So it's heavy electrical, heavy civil. We're going to provide a full set of CDs that's very easy to follow, but there's still safety requirements, which is now paramount in the telecom industry. So it's a natural progression. It's a good relationship for most companies, providing we can support that.
So Alan, the software is typically loaded, so you're not looking for people who are software engineers potentially on an outsourced basis for this. This is software that's already embedded, and you can adjust this or work on it remotely, correct?
Yes, exactly. And when we talk about our partners itself, it's really incremental to what you do today. There's a couple of electrical certifications that per se that. On top of that, it's fairly straightforward because we deliver a complete end-to-end solution.
Gotcha. So So we do most likely have a few minutes for questions. If anybody from the field would like to ask anything, again, we will be here, including me. I will stay and we'll talk about ChargedUP and what we can do to help with our partner, Pupio Studios. That if anyone wanted to know more about marketing in this industry, but we will be here. Any questions from the field? Anyone wants to ask before we get to the next panel? Anybody have a question? Good. Well, okay. This is an esteemed group of folks, and they'll be around for you to talk to individually. But thank you all. I appreciate it very much.